I have a pretty dated PC, with the CPU being already around 10 years old. So I decided to upgrade and trade my old Intel Core i7-4770K for a AMD Ryzen 5 5600, which according to user benchmark should be better in every way, while also being very affordable. Hello again. It is now 4 days later, so let me give you a quick update on what happened. I have built my new PC and added all the old hard drives, and everything seemed to work fine. But some of the distros I have been using for multi-booting were still using a BIOS bootloader instead of the more modern UEFI, which in turn meant that I couldn't boot with, including my Arch Linux installation. But NixOS actually worked fine. But in the process of installing a new bootloader for Arch Linux, I accidentally destroyed the NixOS bootloader, which seems a lot harder to fix from the outside than Arch Linux. So I figured it would be easier to just install NixOS from scratch and then use my configuration file to restore it to how it was before. After all, that's a huge selling point of NixOS, so I expect it to work flawlessly, or at least with very few problems. We are now in the NixOS installer, and we are about to witness the greatest error I have committed in quite some time. You see, while fixing the Arch Linux bootloader, I wrote down which system lives on which device. So I wrote down that on device SDA I have NixOS, on device SDC I have Windows, on device SDD I have Arch Linux, and so on. Since this bootloader restoration worked, I was quite confident in my paperwork. Actually, too confident, because in the NixOS installer all the hard drives had different labels than in the Arch Linux installer. So long story short, I'm about to partition my Arch Linux hard drive with all my important data on it. That is kinda rough, but luckily I could recover most of the files from some offsite backups. The lesson I have learned from this is to never trust these device labels and always triple check which hard drive you're about to format. Anyway, the rest of the installation was quite successful, and now we are in the command shell of NixOS, trying to restore the old configuration. I had already forgotten that there's neither Vim nor V, just nano. And now I'm just adding git to the configuration, because that should be all that is needed to restore the system, right? I forgot to connect to the internet. No problem, nmcli makes it very convenient to connect and then just rebuild. And now I can just clone the configuration files and copy them to the right place on the system. Let's see if rebuilding works. Sadly no, some hashes seem to have changed and now it won't work anymore. After some fiddling around, I decided to just manually add the new hash to the configuration. Since I am working in a very basic TTY interface, there was no easy copy-paste option available, and I didn't want to change the configuration too much. The following rebuild looked good, but it failed because it was missing my wallpaper. Luckily that was easy to fix. I just had to download a reference wallpaper and put it into the appropriate place on my system. This time the rebuild mostly worked, but it took a very long time to finish. And with these a bit convoluted steps, NixOS is working again. As a quick interjection, let's look at what kind of performance gain we achieved by going through all this trouble. The first 6 benchmarks are included in hard info, and the first 5 benchmarks mostly test CPU performance. Here we can see quite a lot of improvement. The GPU ray tracing performance seems to be a lot worse, and I don't really know why. And to get an impression of the actual gaming performance, I looked at the spaceship demo for Unity, which showed an average improvement of 5%. So while gaming performance should now be improved, the gain should only be marginal. On the other hand, looking at CPU loads, my new system seems to be much better suited than my old system. After a while, I finally noticed that I had deleted my main data partition. So I immediately launched a Arch Linux Live image to try and recover whatever data I can. I didn't really know much about data recovery at that point, but I knew about test disk, which I just let run and scan the system to see if anything was salvageable. The short answer is no. But I still wanted to add another system to my multi-boot setup since Arch Linux was gone. So, behold OpenSUSE with KDE Plasma 6. This might seem like a totally different approach to my NixOS with Hyperland, and I guess it is. But I really like to have the freedom of choice what kind of operating system I want to use for a specific task. And I appreciate that NixOS is rock solid, as I've seen from just restoring it, it just works again. But sometimes I just want to quickly try something that might be difficult in NixOS, for example, installing a certain Python package into my Blender installation. Anyways, that is the final state of affairs after my PC upgrade. In the process, I deleted at least 2 operating systems and tried for a few days to recover data. But in the end, I gained approximately 5% of gaming performance. Honestly, I'm really starting to wonder if I am suited to use a computer at all. So I guess the lesson you can take out of this is to always have safety backups of all your data and triple check which hard drive you're about to format, since apparently the naming is random, which is kind of interesting to me. Actually, if you know more about this naming scheme, I would be glad to read it in the comments, because I know you guys are smart people. As a small addendum, I also tried out the spaceship demo on OpenSUSE, which you can see running right now. And interestingly, the performance here is much worse than on NixOS, and I don't really know why. On NixOS I recorded the video with an external capture card, and on OpenSUSE I used the OBS directly, so maybe that's the reason. But still I'm missing like 20 frames per second, and I'm wondering if it really is all due to the encoding locally while also running the demo. Maybe NixOS is also just better at providing working optimized NVIDIA support, which is something I never quite figured out on Linux. In any case, it seems like going forwards I should focus on trying out gaming on NixOS instead of OpenSUSE as well. Piece by piece, NixOS is really becoming my daily driver now. I know I said this before, but I am really amazed how everything just works in most cases. And I'm interested in seeing how long this honeymoon phase will last. I will leave the rest of the demo running for reference, but the video is over now. Bye!